listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God, boy.
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William. Joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And on this episode, we're discussing Hot Fuzz, the 2007 movie from Edgar Wright that is a buddy cop action movie with kind of slasher elements in it.
Yeah,
kind of like a genre mashup.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a slasher than I remember it being.
Yeah, because rewatching, because of course saw this in theaters when it came out. Had watched it a number of times after the fact. And it was only like at one point somebody kind of reframed it as like, oh, it's kind of a slasher. Then I rewatched, it's like, that's kind of right. I mean, there's all these different elements around it.
It's 90 minutes of a murder mystery from the cop's perspective, which is sometimes like a giallo or something,
Yeah.
But there's really no shoot 'em up action or anything till like the last 30 minutes, like
it turns into Bad Boys.
It's like he made a second horror film, only it's not scary, but a second horror film when it was originally built as like, hey, this is your buddy cop action film. So it was like, you got something a little bit different than you expected, which I liked. And I wonder if it was like, I assume possibly maybe a budget thing. Maybe it was just what he wanted to do. But, he talked about the challenges of making a cop action film. You know what I mean?
Without $100 million budget.
Yeah. And those locations and everything. So, but yeah.
But before we go to that, we can go through some recent news and things we've been watching. So, news, recently there was the ad for The Nun that was running on YouTube that got pulled. And I've seen a bunch of people make videos about this and make all these articles about it. And it's where there was a 6 second or 7 second ad that is just the volume. It's like a black screen with a little volume meter like going down, like bloop, 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 bloop. And then it has The Nun go, in the screen. It's like The Nun, and it has like the date that it's coming out.
The Nun.
So, I mean, I had seen that and I didn't even really think much about it, but enough people complained about it, like terrorizing them. And I saw people post like, I can't sleep. I still can't sleep and it's 5 a.m. Thanks, YouTube. It's like, I don't see how that...
Did they not grow up with E-Bombs World and the stupid car ad? Like we were just talking about that before.
Yeah, that's
it's
because I've been seeing screenshots about that recently, and I thought, well, is that the Nun thing? Because I didn't watch it until you just showed it to me.
There's a lot of ads where there's like quote unquote screamers, so it's like you think it's one thing, and there's like something just screaming in front of the camera, and it causes people to jump. I just don't personally understand how that could cause someone to be terrified beyond that, because there's no context to it. To me, I mean, I guess this just goes down to personal sensibilities and what your thresholds are and what your life experience is. But to me, an out-of-context jump scare is not scary because there's no context to it. There's nothing to me that grounds it and makes me think about it.
If that scares them so bad they can't sleep at night, do not buy a cat, because cats will do the same shit to you every day. So you'll be like sitting here, all this weird noise, and the cat jumps out and runs off. And if you can't handle that ad, don't.
Derek's living a cliche horror movie every day.
Yes, every day. You hear weird noises, and like, what is that? And the cat's like, meow, and just runs across the room.
You close the refrigerator door, and the cat's standing there looking at you.
And it's like, okay.
And you scream.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where I think it's become sensationalized, where it's probably like a few people complained about it. And then since they decided to pull it because they said it violates their services, because I think like promoted videos or advertisements on YouTube that are pre-rolls or that run aren't supposed to have like shocking content, and that's been dubbed to be shocking. It's one of those things where it's like, to me, if I had seen that, I don't like it's hard for me to sit here because we work on like on short films and stuff, and I'm like, well, what would actually scare someone? Because nothing to me, like, I've never watched a short film and been like, ugh, or jumped or anything.
What I wish this actually was a Quiznos commercial. So the nun screams and a sandwich just goes into her mouth. It's like, Quiznos.
There's a sandwich sitting on the table, and she's like, and bites it.
Does Quiznos even exist anymore?
We were talking about before this about like kids YouTube and all that stuff. How, like, there should be a separate thing. You pay like $5 a month or whatever, to curate it. But it would almost be cool if, the good thing about YouTube is, I guess the good and bad thing is that you just can stumble down this wormhole and just start clicking and watch next video. I almost wished it was almost like Reddit or more classified, like, hey, here is the horror. You can go to basic YouTube, but here is the horror channel that includes all the other horror channels and all the content, and they could put ads like that on there. You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay, here's the horror community, and it could be stuff that's a little bit more geared towards this, where if it is just somebody watching a My Little Pony unboxing video and the nun pops up, you know what I mean? They can avoid that. Like that would be cool if they could kind of break it down. I get probably they just want it to be wide open.
Well, they have the YouTube gaming part, so you can watch gaming stuff. But it seems like years ago, back in 2007, when I was, back when I was still in college in my business school classes, like you had to submit ideas, and one of the ideas I submitted back then was like YouTube should allow users to, in their own videos, categorize what category it falls into and have channels. So you can go to their website, the main site, and have it just be the, trending whatever that it is now. But then have a separate page, it's like on the main screen, the tab or something, where it just has it categorized by type of video.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to some extent, but you should be able to have it like further, because then for an advertiser's perspective, if somebody's watching horror short films, they might actually care about these upcoming horror films.
Yeah.
Or, if they're watching old clips from old movies, as opposed to if somebody's watching a how-to video about replacing the battery in a certain type of car, then maybe these different ads would be more relevant to that. And
it seems like it would foster those communities more too.
And
you know what I mean? Like
you
if
would
you're
just,
just
make more
getting introduced to more.
And you would assume that, some of these things, if you age restricted or whatever, or you just target, you can look at the demographics, like, oh, most people who watch these horror things are 17 to 35, or, some general idea like that, and then more tailor your ads. Because there's times that I am watching a video about a Blu-ray or something, and then the ad is for some car dealership that's 300 miles away.
Yeah.
It's like, that seems like a waste of their ad money.
Alfa Romeo? No, I just want to watch the Avengers Blu-ray script.
I don't know,
how to
but like,
change my headlight on my Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, well, here's the nun.
yeah, like if somebody keeps looking up like how to fix videos on cars, maybe showing them a local car dealer ad's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But if somebody is wanting to watch,
How to bake a cake.
if somebody's wanting to watch a video about a new camera lens, they don't necessarily want to see a jump scare ad for the nun.
Yeah, I mean, you assume the reason is some sort of business, financial reason, where it's like, no, it weighs up better for us to, you know what I mean? Like the money is the ad revenue or whatever is stronger if we just keep it wide open. But like, if you made a horror thing, like honestly, that would take eyeballs possibly. If there was enough there and it was curated well enough or organized, like that would take eyeballs off stuff like Bloody Disgusting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you thought, hey, I could just go there. They have basically, it's almost like a horror website with all videos. You know what I mean? Like you would think that would even take more eyeballs off some of those communities that have websites built around them. I mean, that's why we built the website, so we could have our own little portal thing. But yeah, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but it would be nice to do that.
But the jump scare thing, I don't really think there's much to it that's quote unquote horrifying or terrifying.
No, I mean, to me, it's like like I said, if you grew up in the E-Bomb World era,
I guess
you've
it's
seen
just
the same thing.
I guess it's just if
1,000
young
times.
kids or people that just are so sensitive to anything that's quote unquote scary.
I almost feel like the older I get, like the more I get away from that type of horror. Like I still like it, I enjoy it. I don't hate it.
Are
at
you
all.
like, get off my lawn?
Well, no, it's not that I hate it, but like, stuff like The Conjuring, I know people love it. I'm just like, whatever, it's fine. But I'd almost like, again, it's not everybody's taste, but like Killing of the Sacred Deer, like stuff like that, where it's like, there's really no scares. It's just like some messed up stuff. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like my tastes are starting to change more. And
I mean, too.
I think that's all geared towards teens, I guess, and maybe people that just like that is their jam. You know what I mean? And they found it and they just stick with that.
Like the 7-second ad though, it's literally just like a volume meter like going down and then a jump scare.
I mean, I said they just edited it for a Subway commercial or a Quiznos commercial with the nun and partnered up. Then they'd be fine.
I mean, people get scared of everything, though.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, people do truly get scared by it. So I just found it interesting that was such a big deal.
yeah.
Well, I think too though, it got sensationalized because people are like, oh, this is a story. They'll get a lot of comments, and then they post it.
That's
and then,
another stupid thing.
because then what happens is everyone in the comments like, that wasn't scary at all. Because the thing that I've seen with a lot of horror things, which is interesting, like in the age difference between people who watch stuff, is a lot of people who are maybe of a little bit younger generation. When they talk about horror content, it's simply, is it scary or is it not? If it's not scary, it's the stupidest thing ever. If it's scary, I like it. And I think some of which is why I've seen people say like, "Oh, I can't watch horror movies that are older than 10 years old because they're just so goofy."
I saw my wife said somebody on her Facebook page posted about going to see the Meg, and they're like, "Don't worry about going and seeing the Meg." And this person is older than all of us.
Yeah.
By maybe not quite 10 years, but I feel like they're around 40, and they're like, "Don't go see the Meg. It's not scary. I only jumped like 7 or 8 times." And it's like, okay, you jumped it all one, and then like 7 or 8 times seems like quite a bit.
That's
Like
a
for
lot.
me, yeah. And like, what did you expect based on the trailers? Like, did they ever bill it as being a scary film? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's like
Yeah.
Jaws.
it's all in your
meets
mind,
Sharknado.
But yeah, people just, I don't know, perceptions are weird, and people don't like it when they're not given what they want. And
I mean, yeah, I just find don't go see this movie. I only jumped the entire time.
Yeah.
I lost my popcorn. I threw my Coke, ripped my shirt off. Don't go watch it. Okay.
Yeah.
it's
so-
like, I guess if you didn't get what you wanted out of it, then you couldn't see. I don't know how the Meg is. I know people aren't super.
Well, I
hot on it,
don't know. The way that they market it to me is just a big. It seems like a movie they tried to get Dwayne Johnson in. He's like, nah. So like, oh, okay, we'll
Well, I
go get
think,
Jason
but
Statham.
it's a big budget sci-fi.
Yeah, to me, it
film.
just looked like something that they tried to get The Rock in. He's like, I already did Rampage.
I meant the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
that's what I
So
meant.
to me, it looked like a Deep Blue Sea level movie, but from the reviews, it seems like it reaches that level of absurdity, but doesn't winkingly acknowledge it to the audience. It's more played straight.
Yeah, whereas like Deep Blue Sea is something like the cover eventually because it's so.
Because the Sam Jackson
Yeah.
speech and all that stuff. So yeah, I was gonna watch the Meg, but Movie Pass, it is a mess
ass.
now because it only lets you see the only 2 movies I could see with it right now are Slender Man or Alpha. I have no interest in seeing the Slender Man movie because all of the reviews said exactly what the trailer made it look like, which is just a very blah, paint by numbers horror movie that didn't really break any new ground and is not it's aimed at teens, but it's about 5 years too late.
Yeah, so Slender Man thing she's about because
They're all
now
aged out of it.
Well, now like Slender Man has Slender Man erotica, so it's way surpassed the original.
The tentacles are going
Yeah,
places
so it's
and-
already way surpassed what it was 5 years ago. You had the Slender Man like crime that was committed with the 2 younger girls. So to me, it just looked like this. It's like, you already missed your,
Look out for my upcoming film, Salad Fingers.
Salad
Do you remember
Fingers.
Salad Fingers?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. So let's see, other news. Bruce Campbell is retired playing Ash in live action, but will be doing the voice of Ash for a video game because he said that he already had existing obligations for that and didn't want someone else to go in there and voice the character, which I completely understand. And I mean, I understand. So from his perspective too, just thinking about him as an actor, doing another movie or a show that takes significant time, that takes months. Like like the show, I think he was willing to continue doing it as long as it didn't get canceled. And then when it did, he said no more movies. And part of that's probably just because from the time you pitch a concept to a movie to the
Yeah.
time it happens, that's years. So
Yeah.
he didn't want to put his life on hold
Yeah,
for years.
it's one thing saying, okay, I'm going to be shooting a new season in 8 months. That's fine,
Yeah.
Rather than like, I might shoot a new film in 2 to 3 years, or we may get 2 years in and it may not happen.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and two, like he is somebody that when he does the convention circuit or does those appearances, everybody has like the same 4 questions. Initially with the show, it was like, oh, I like the show, but you're gonna make another movie. And when is Bubba Hotep 2? And like 1 or 2 other things. So it's just like I couldn't imagine him just getting so fed up with that. Because even now, even though he has definitively said there will never be a Bubba Hotep 2 starring him, people still ask him. And I could just imagine that getting really old very quickly.
Yeah, I don't understand how he is not how he doesn't have a big reputation for being an asshole to fans, because I would get so tired of that.
Well, what's
It's the
funny
same-
is-
I have a lot of patience.
Well, I
I
could
feel like
just-
it sometimes, but I can't believe he has had this much patience. Like,
Well,
it's been like 15,
Well,
20
too,
years.
like talking about the convention thing, I guarantee you, there's just people that are just one after another the same. Like William's saying, the same questions.
Well,
that
what
would
was
get
it,
very annoying very fast. But I guess they are paying you money, so you're
What's
just-
her name that was in The Exorcist?
Linda Blair.
Linda Blair. Like, aren't you not allowed to ask her questions about The Exorcist or stuff at
I don't
signings?
remember. Did you meet her? Didn't?
Yeah,
didn't
very
I-
briefly.
when she give me the finger and then say, "Get
No,
out my face."
I think it says just like there'd be like 100 people in line and 50 of them ask about what it was she vomited out in The Exorcist.
And it's like,
And it's
you have
like-
Wikipedia, go look it up.
Yeah.
You can watch the DVD and see the special features. You can read one of the books. You can read Wikipedia. You can read IMDb.
Yeah, which I don't blame her because that was even further back than Ash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's a friend of mine, and that's how I don't know what was that. Was it Fright? Was it Days of the Dead?
Days of Dead.
Yeah, like
but it's like one of those things where it's like I completely understand that because
Yeah.
I go to family functions and get annoyed when I get asked the same 4 questions over and over,
Yeah.
and that's like
But
4
usually,
times a year.
But see, the family functions that ask you the question, but they don't care about the answer. They say, "Hey, how's it?" and then they walk
Yeah.
off.
Well, and
but
two-
with her, they want the answer. So
One
yeah,
too, like I had seen somebody post about, and I think it was the thing we went to with Bruce Campbell about how they thought he was being rude to him. But it's one of those things where somebody in the audience thinks they're gonna get to interact with this person and be their friend,
And it doesn't work
And
that
it's
way.
like, well, they have a show to run, and they don't want someone else taking the limelight from them and trying to make quippy jokes.
and that's his shtick. Like he's there to entertain, and he is basically playing a version of Ash. You know what I mean?
He's
Like
playing
what would
himself-
Ash do to somebody in that situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would rib him.
or him as a game show host or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly.
Because like when I was up there, he was super nice to me.
Yeah, that's
So-
what we want to see. I met him at Fright Night years ago too. Talked to him a little bit there. He was super cool.
But I think it's
he was very
on-
quick. And
But I
then-
don't think people realize like they don't owe you crap. It's like they don't owe you.
Well, the thing is, though, somebody's like, I'm paying X amount of dollars to
doesn't
get your
matter.
autograph. I need you to have this rapport with me. And because I see this stuff at like these conventions, you see some people that come out really upset and some that are super happy that they got their picture. I'm not somebody that cares about taking pictures with people or getting autographs.
because I'm always bad in pictures anyway, so I don't want it.
And I don't generally like touching people as a general rule, so I don't like having to do these forced interactions.
So like the Avril Lavigne pictures where they like pay all this money, and
Yeah.
she's like in the corner and they're just
like I would rather just like honestly like somebody I would just rather catch him in like the hallway and have like a brief conversation about not movies.
Yeah.
Well, see, then I imagine the Seinfeld scenario where Kramer chased John Voight and he bit him. So don't go. Yeah, I just see you getting bit.
Well,
by
it's just
somebody.
like one of those things you have to understand when you're talking about these conventions is these people, especially the more prominent people, like Bruce Campbell. People ask about when's the sequel to Bubba Hotep coming out since that movie existed in 2002.
Honestly, it's maybe maybe the patient's coming. He recognizes the people asking these questions are a little dense. You know what I mean? To be honest,
Yeah.
If they're asking these questions this far into it, they're out of the loop and maybe not completely with it. You know what I
Internet
mean? Like
fan
maybe he's
culture
just like,
people.
I'm going to give this guy the
Or-
benefit of the doubt because
that. Or this reminds me of a time like my mom. This goes back to she used to work in a school and they had like the fire department come in and they were asking all these kids questions. They had pre-written stuff. Well, there's one little kid got to his point, and the only thing he could muster at the microphone was fire truck.
And he pointed.
So yeah, points at it. So I think like these people probably have questions they want to ask,
Yeah.
and then you get kind of up there and you get kind of like, was it starstruck? And people are
Yeah.
like, when's Bubba Hotep 2 coming out? So it's like the only thing you can muster out.
Well, it's
You know,
just
like so instead
the
of
Chris
asking
Farley
that
interview.
yeah.
You remember that time? You remember that time when he dressed up like Elvis? That was awesome. Are you
Yeah,
going to
so-
do that again?
As I feel like they get up there and like I've done the same thing. You like have in your mind like I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
You get up there and it's like,
But then
when you need it for?
But then you have the reverse side of that. So you have the people like Bruce Campbell that do have a wider, filmography of things they've done. He's obviously most well known for Evil Dead, but he's been in other movies and shows.
You
and
can be in
stuff.
Burn Notice.
He was on Ellen, so he's like on these different things. But I'm just saying, like some people, the reverse of that, whose only prominent role was like some Friday the 13th sequel or Return of
They
the Living
love
Dead
it.
2 or something. So they will find a way to work in anecdotal stories about those movies into conversations that have nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. They could be talking about
You like that salad? Yeah, but in Friday the 13th,
yeah,
part
this
7, I got
this hotel restaurant, like their steak was kind of tough. It reminded me we were on set of Friday the 13th Part 8, and I got to meet Kane Hodder.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So it's
You
just
get the
it's-
opposite.
It's just like it's funny to see the way that people respond on comments and stuff. Like, so with Ash, I'm glad that Bruce Campbell is doing the voice of it because I would really probably be disconcerted if it was a moderately budget or bigger title game. Because if it's just a mobile game, then it's not that that big
there
of
was
a
one
deal.
recently, a mobile one, and I don't think there was any voice acting in it. So, it seemed
There was one a few years ago. It was like a tower defense one. It was like Army of Darkness. I think he did the voice for.
that was really good.
And that was a good game.
Yeah.
And that was years ago.
I think there's one where you're running through the woods that I just played
Oh.
like a few years back. But the tower defense one was awesome.
It'd be kind of cool if this was like reminiscent of like Resident Evil 7 and just was like true horror.
Most of them are moderately budget. Like a lot of them would come out for like $30, like the ones on
Well,
Xbox and stuff.
I
Like, I
remember they
really
had
liked
one- Didn't they have one for the Xbox that came out like a while? It's been like since
Yeah, Ted. I can't remember if there's Fistful of Boomstick was
Yeah,
one,
that's what I was thinking.
but I don't know if that's that one. But Ted Raimi played his like little mutant midget sidekick, or small. I don't know, small person sidekick, and you would kick him through different things, and his explosive like that was. For being like a $20 or $30 game, that was really fun. Like I knew my expectations were at check. Like, okay, this isn't like a $60 thing. The gameplay could be broken, but it was pretty decent.
And there was the one that was like on PlayStation, Hail to the King, I think. That was kind of an Resident Evil knockoff.
And Dreamcast.
But yeah, so hopefully it's like a decently budgeted game that could theoretically pick up where the show left off.
Or what if it's just literally Duke Nukem, but with Ash Williams?
Yeah, or, honestly, if he said, hey, a video game thing, he could be an extra character in the new Mortal Kombat. Yeah, they haven't announced the new Mortal Kombat, but they would be making those deals now, like with DLC characters and stuff.
Because Carl Weathers did it, so...
See, I was listening to some stuff about the Friday the 13th video game.
Or it could be Tekken 7.
And the rights issues with that franchise has led to the point they can't introduce any new content into the game that's from the movies, because all that stuff is still held in the lawsuit. And they've said before, like, the game, they'll continue to provide technical support for it and patches and things like that, but there's not going to be adding any new content. It's like, how badass would it be if they add Ash as a playable character? But I don't think they would do that, because the amount of crossover stuff that would require, there's no way they would do that with not being able to add new content to the game that they could sell that's related to, Friday the 13th. But let's see, trying to think other brief news. Castle Rock has been renewed for season 2 at Hulu. It's going to continue the anthology format of the entire season as one story, and each season is a different story. So hopefully they can do that better than American Horror Story. Don't touch the mic stand, Derek.
Did you watch any Castle Rock yet, Derek?
No, I really need to.
I need to catch up on
I've been watching a bunch of other stuff. I got on a Seinfeld kick, and then watch this thing. We'll talk about what we've been watching, but now I would like to watch it because I really like Bill Skarsgård a lot. So anything he's in pretty much makes me interested to at least check it out.
Except Hemlock Grove, which is on Netflix. Don't go back and watch that. He's in it. It's not. It was a show where he's a vampire. There's a werewolf.
I will say
Eli Roth produced that.
Look,
if Eli Roth is in anything, I got zero interest.
Hey, unless they decide to share some of our stuff from their Crypt TV channel.
Yeah, I would say me personally,
Derek said, keep me off of it.
Yeah, just keep me off of it. He's schlocky.
Like Hemlock Grove. So to me, what it felt like was a low budget.
He seems like an ass.
It was a low budget True Blood aimed at teenagers, but with content that made it like rated R, so you couldn't really recommend it to 15, 16-year-olds. It's just like if somebody really loved True Blood but thought it wasn't shitty enough, then Hemlock Grove was right up their alley.
Well, they had that girl from X-Men in that one show.
Oh yeah, so True Blood had Anna Paquin, and Hemlock Grove had Famke Jensen.
Who's that?
Who was Jean Grey from the X-Men original series.
Oh, so there you go.
Awesome.
There's your X-Men connection.
And then it had
Taken also.
It had Pennywise.
She got taken a lot.
And then it had what was the guy that was in Mission Impossible 2 is the bad guy.
I always thought it was Antonio Banderas, and that's what I remember.
He was going to play Wolverine in the X-Men films, but Mission Impossible 2, the schedules overlapped, so they instead got Hugh Jackman.
Well, we're gonna bring it to if my Mandela effect of my life isn't like the Shazam movie or whatever it is with the Shaq. Mine is I really thought for like 10 years Antonio Banderas was the enemy in Mission Impossible 2.
Dougray Scott.
That would be pretty cool if it was Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, I always remember that, and then I went back. I remember we were talking about Antonio Banderas. I remember it being Antonio Banderas, and they jumped off the dirt bikes and hit each other.
Well, it's like it's Dougray Scott. So he was the one who was going to be Wolverine, but then they instead got Hugh Jackman. It's kind of like I always thought that before we rewatched Arachnophobia for the podcast, I was always as a kid I thought it was Bill Pullman, but it's Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, but isn't it funny? Like you remember, like I remember Antonio Banderas being I don't know if I'm getting like two movies confused or something at that point in time, but I just really remember it being them two. And then like I remember they had like on it was either one of the late night shows where they had Tom Cruise or that guy on there and they made fun of it with them like with action figures or something.
Yeah. Well, then like there was the MTV thing with Ben Stiller, like the skit where he was Tom Cruise's stunt double.
Yeah,
and they joked about it.
I don't remember that.
I bet if you were Tom Cruise's stunt double, you just do nothing.
Because
that'd be the easiest job on earth.
Yeah, because there was like one of the MTV Movie Awards. There was a skit where Ben Stiller was Tom Cruise's stunt double for Mission Impossible 2, and I forget all what happened in it, but I remember that being funny. But,
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about. I just always get it confused, but anyway, that's my Mandela effect.
So I guess we move into what we've been watching before we get into Hot Fuzz. Did anybody watch anything worth mentioning?
Well, like I love true crime and paranormal. Sean don't believe in ghosts. So, because didn't y'all talk about that in the last episode about Waverly and stuff?
yeah.
Well, anyway, I love like good ghost hunting shows where it's not ridiculous. Unsolved, it's Buzzfeed Unsolved. It's two guys that go around. They do true crime stuff and they also do like ghost investigations. It's not. What was there was a movie you talked about recently that was from the Ghost Hunter show.
Demon House.
Yeah, Demon House. It's nothing like that because that's like really schlocky and they're always like, "Ghosts, come out and fight me. I'm going to." Yeah, it's not like that, but I really do enjoy that kind of
I
stuff.
just remember the South Park episode, The Ghost Hunters. That's what I always think about.
But like, they're not like him and their crew where it's just
Yeah.
like ridiculous. It's. But I really enjoy stuff like that. So if you like enjoy like true crime or ghost hunting or like macabre weird stuff, I would. It's on Amazon Prime and YouTube.
Is it like half-hour episodes or what?
Yeah, half hour. It starts off a little
And what's it
less.
called
and
again? BuzzFeed?
BuzzFeed Unsolved. It's really good. And then I started watching Matt Groening's new show.
Disenchantment?
Disenchanted or whatever.
Disenchantment, Derek.
Sorry, I'm only 2 episodes in, but it's really good so far.
So it's like a medieval Game of Thrones ish.
yeah, they make fun of Game of
That's
Thrones.
kind of Futurama ish.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like
That animation style.
Yeah, I
and that
really
kind of
enjoy
satire.
his animation because it's very much him. It's kind of like BoJack Horseman though in the way like it starts off kind of slow. Like I said, I'm only 2 episodes in, but it does.
It's probably
get much
because it's
better.
definitely focused on the story. Because I think I'd heard this isn't like Futurama and Simpsons where it's going to be long running. I think this has a finite end.
Yeah.
So this is a story. I think. So
Yeah.
probably why it takes a little bit more.
But
to
I mean, I
get
really enjoy
going.
if you enjoy his
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
like storytelling structure because it's more Futurama
And in his though,
storytelling.
you know what I mean? Like, did he? How much did he have to do with Futurama? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but is it like, hey, this is like Seth MacFarlane's? You know what I mean? American Dad, but really,
Yeah.
did he do American? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things.
This
I
one-
think. I'm not for sure though.
I don't know, but just because everybody's really used to him now. Simpsons has been on TV for like pretty much my entire life, I think. Or when did it come out? 89.
I think so.
It was when I was
Yeah,
pretty
so
young.
I'm saying Simpsons has been on TV longer than I've been alive, or right around the same amount of time. So it's like everybody's used to him. This feels very much like his type of comedy. But that's really all I've watched is that. And,
Yeah, The Simpsons was 89.
I haven't really. I've been so busy lately, so I haven't got a. Much
Yeah, I
chance
just
watching
only
the
thing
extra.
I've kept up on was I did rewatch Black Panther because my wife hadn't seen it yet. Still really love that movie.
Is it as I've not watched it a second time, and like I watched it and I was really impressed the first time. But something that I don't know if y'all brought up in the last podcast or if this has happened. The Oscars have a new
Popular film.
I don't
film, which I don't even know what that means because that
Yeah.
could literally be anything. But like with Black Panther, is it something that was enjoyable the second time around as the first time around?
Oh, absolutely. I was actually watching it thinking like, actually, this movie is the real Marvel Civil War film. Like, there's literally like minor
An actual
spoilers,
war.
but like there's a literally civil war. And
Yeah.
I wonder if that has to do with like anything with America's Civil War. Like, was there an intentional, you know what I mean? Linkage to that and
Yeah.
what that meant and everything. Like, there's
Now,
a lot of good things I really loved in this film.
I
Watching the second time.
I think the biggest problem I have with that movie is that it falls in the trappings of a lot of other Marvel films where the end fight is just pure CGI, and that's the only thing I think where it loses.
But the drama about it is so good.
yeah.
Like, the resolution and just everything about it. I don't want to get into spoilers. People haven't seen it.
But I think this is like I said, I would need to rewatch it. But I think this is the rare movie where personally, like, I'd rather see a movie about the villain than the hero.
Yeah.
Because I think that was just a much more interesting character who had like actual
I
purpose.
was watching because I just rented it from Redbox, and I was watching like all the special features that I could before I had to take it back. And they were talking, Ryan, is it Coogler or
Coogler?
Coogler.
Yeah.
He was talking about how like basically the villain in this and Black Panther, the hero, like those are two parts of him. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, and a lot of people too, it's not like, oh, it's just the hero or just the villain. Like, no, these are both of them together make up like his thoughts on things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and that's what's interesting about it. Like, yeah, you can go either way.
Well, I'm going to kind of compare this a little bit to kind of like Dark Knight The only reason I bring that is like I feel like kind of like the relationship that Joker brought up about like where they need each other.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the Black Panther. The problem with the sequel is like how do you top that villain?
Yeah.
Like where do you
No,
go?
I don't know.
Well,
either.
like
I don't know either.
The things I remember is like the Killmonger from Black Panther. It seemed like there's a few moments that made him do things that were evil just to like push him out of
Like,
being,
yeah.
just to make him a little
a for sure bad guy.
because otherwise it's his viewpoint.
He's very Magneto-like. Like the way that he acts, if you had to compare him to another Marvel villain, would be Magneto. Like he's the grand scheme of things. He's not wrong. Like with his thought process and his motivations, similar to Magneto, they very much took that out of that X-Men type.
it's just kind of what your upbringing and background, like
Yeah.
how this shaped him and why he is the way he is, makes total sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just too. They're coming at a problem, and that's what the resolution of the film and everything. Like, it's like, okay, we're gonna come and try to solve a problem, but from different angles, and even by the end of the film, the villain has influenced the hero's ideologies. You know what I mean? Like, there's
this movie did what the X-Men films have not been able to do yet because you very much because like the creation of like Charles Xavier and Magneto were kind of like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, where this is more kind of a direct thing with that, and this did it better.
Yeah,
You know?
they never I don't think they ever came to a head on X-Men. It was always like they planted those seeds of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is interesting, and they never did anything other than like, okay, now we're gonna have the villain and the good guy, and it's like, just go like finish this loop, or you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
the
kind of
X-
finish the arc with that.
Well, the X-Men films always hinted there was this more like structured history between Magneto and
Yeah.
Xavier, and never actually showed it happen.
Yeah.
And then because like First Class, they hang out for like maybe a week at most.
Yeah. Oh,
And
maybe a
then-
month, maybe a
Or whatever it is, like
not a very long
the
time.
movies made it seem because like the comics they worked together for a longer period of time, but yeah, like Black Panther's movie I haven't rewatched. Since
But I'm saying
it came
that,
out.
yeah, I want to rewatch it. But I mean, that's
this-
just one of the interesting dynamics. And two, though, you look at who made the film and everything, it probably makes more sense that would be a little more prevalent in that. And that's kind of why I took away
Well, and
from
two,
it.
at the end of the day, I don't think anybody would have guessed that the domestic gross for Black Panther would be more than Infinity War a year ago. But it made like 20, because like I think Infinity War is like 670 to 80 million, somewhere in that range right now.
Yeah.
And Black Panther was just over 700 million. I mean, now Infinity War made over, over 2 billion worldwide, made, hundreds of millions more worldwide because the international audience for it. But domestically, I don't think anybody 2 years ago would have said Black Panther.
Now, I guess my next thing with the Black Panther 2 is like, can it repeat that level of success? 'Cause I think there will be some drop off.
I think that they can't really, if it's like one of the top 5 grossing domestic releases of all time, I don't think you can really go up from there.
Yeah.
Just because
And I don't think it'll be a failure if it
No,
doesn't.
no,
Like,
it
what do
won't
you
be.
know?
It-
I mean,
it's like Star Wars with.
Yeah.
I mean, if it makes
Force
if the
Awakens.
sequel makes 500, 400 million, over a billion worldwide, that's still a success.
Yeah.
It's just the first one set these unrealistic expectations for follow-ups because it just outperformed to such a great extent.
Yeah. Well, that's what, and like I said, I really would like to check, but there have been, Marvel has put out very good movies this year.
Yeah, the special features on it are awesome. I'm just talking about all kinds of stuff, like Forrest Whitaker's character. Like, okay, well, even we show him when he's younger, he's wearing purple because that's a very spiritual color and stuff. And like his all the details with just the color used in the film and the dress and wardrobe, like so much stuff. Like the commentary. Again, I had to return it before I finished it because I was watching it again with the commentary. Just had it on. And it was the production designer and the director.
Yeah.
So she was talking a lot about all the design decisions and stuff too. It was very good.
One thing too I like about Chadwick Boseman in this is like he is T'Challa. So at any point in time, like they ever reboot this, like even though he's only been in the role twice or three times, sorry, it's like he's very much that character, and so they couldn't have found a better actor for it. There's really nobody else you look at and like, oh, they should have got him because it's like no, he's pretty perfect for the role. So I think that is one thing Marvel and Disney been great at is getting the right people in the right roles.
For sure.
But just hopefully they can transition that to giving their female actors better leads and roles in
It's
movies
just,
and stuff.
again, you think about it's like, okay, well, how do you do this in the horror spin? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you make, like, sometimes you have slasher villains or killers that are like, okay, I see where they're coming from. Like Jigsaw, a little like, obviously a horrible person, but it's like, okay, he wants people to value their life.
Yeah.
I could see that point of it, but like, what are you doing? Like, where, you know what I mean? Like, how can you build something out here from a more even more
Well,
drastic
it's like with Jason. Like, okay, I get that you killed the first group of camp counselors because they maybe but then once you get to your 20th set of them, it's like, all right, man, you've already
it's just his morning routine at this point. So then I also caught up on Sharp Objects as of now, but we're recording this on Sunday morning, the 18th or something. So obviously
it's hard.
I obviously haven't seen
August 19th
tonight's episode, but still liking that show a whole lot. It's it is a murder mystery, but it's very much a drama also. And I feel like some of the mystery part, it is still being revealed a little bit, but at the same time, I'm almost noticing, I feel like it's leaning more into the drama part and the relationships,
Yeah.
And I don't mean like, sexual relationship necessarily all but just the family and all that stuff and the whole community. It's leaning into that more, and I like it, but also sometimes I'm a little bit like, okay, I want to see a little bit more movement on this. And there has been movement, but it doesn't seem like there is so much crazy revelation stuff coming on. And not that it has to be super genre heavy on that end, but I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more resolution start to come out of this show, which I'm guessing it is. It's a limited series. I don't know how many episodes there are, but they're probably like 7 or 8 episodes in now. So it should be coming soon. So maybe they're just kind of building up the relationships a little bit more to make the payoff that much more satisfying. But yeah, still really enjoying it. Still really recommend that show. Editing in it, we talk about this movie has awesome editing. Not all the time does that mean it's noticeable editing. Sometimes it's like, hey, it has great editing because I didn't, you don't really notice it or whatever. But this has noticeable editing decisions, but they're awesome. Like the way it uses editing for its storytelling is, I don't know, it has an identity. Just like if you watch an Edgar Wright film, like, okay, Edgar Wright is putting himself in this film as much as Simon Pegg is in the film. You know what I mean? Like that's how some of the editing is in this. Like not all the time. It's not like distracting, but some of the moments of storytelling and the way they use editing are really, really good. So yeah, I love the editing in the show as well, but everything about it, the music, all of it, it's actors, everybody's great in it. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, so I didn't really get a chance to watch anything, so we can
Castle Rock a little bit though, right?
Well, I haven't watched the episode that came out this week.
Yeah.
So
but still recommend.
I mean, I'm still enjoying it.
How many episodes have you watched then?
5, I think.
I need to catch up.
It's like I'm enjoying it. Like in terms of a Hulu show. Like I said,
is that a derogatory term, William?
Well, it's just like Hulu. So in terms of like their shows, they had that one 11/22/63 show with James Franco, and they've had Handmaid's Tale, and they've kind of had these other minor series.
What's the other one about the kind of the cult? The
Path.
Yeah.
So they've had these series that has Aaron. That one had Aaron Paul and Michelle Monaghan and the guy from Hannibal, but they haven't been the network that got all the attention for their shows aside from Handmaid's Tale. And Handmaid's Tale is a good show. To me, it's just such a like oppressive feeling down show. They're like, you gotta be in the mood to watch that.
They got Seinfeld.
And something like original series.
Yeah,
because Hulu for the most part for a long time was just watching the recent episodes of network shows you missed when they aired or some cable show.
Or if you're like me, you don't have cable, you just have internet, you can just keep up.
They have like back catalogs of stuff, but their original series, like Castle Rock, is one they've already renewed for season 2, and it's kind of it's genre-ish, and it's something that wouldn't feel that out of place on like an HBO or Showtime or something.
Yeah.
But it's just, my point is just like the Hulu, they don't have the same cachet or the same cash with their name that Netflix does. Because the Netflix series like Stranger Things have been, pop culture phenomenons, and Handmaid's Tale has been talked about and gotten awards praise and things like that, but I don't think it's like a mainstream cultural, mover like Stranger Things. And so Castle Rock is one where I think they, I don't know if it's going to be a bigger break. I think I had like some of their highest viewership numbers of any of their shows so far. But Castle Rock, so you have that, the Stephen King name recognition, and you have, some names in it people recognize, like Bill Skarsgård, who is Pennywise. And you have the promise of it tying into Stephen King things because they've mentioned stuff in it. They mentioned stuff from Stand By Me and Cujo and characters. So for a lot of people who are Stephen King, like, fanatics, it's just are all these references? Are do those
Reference
stories?
porn for Stephen King fans.
Well, it's like the thing that they're wondering is, did all these references they're making, did those stories play out the way they did in the books or the movies, or was it, just these kind of smaller plot points that are just Easter eggs they're not going to explore? So there's things like that for people to be excited about. Like, I'm enjoying it. I do usually each week. Like, I've looked forward to the new episodes coming out, even though it's in a few weeks. I'll watch 4 episodes at once and then the new one.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it. Just, I think a lot of those shows is kind of how does the entire season hang together, because you can review separate pieces of it, but then it's, how does it all hang together as a whole? And that's kind of what I'm waiting for, because some shows can have like decent build up and then just completely fall apart and feel like a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how most American Horror Story seasons feel to me, that they have these cool build-ups and creepy moments, but then they just completely throw it all away at the end for these same story tropes they tell in every single season. And Sarah Paulson crying and screaming and all these things. It's like, so maybe, I'll wait till the end of the season to really gather an opinion on it, but I'm enjoying it.
I wonder, you kind of made me think about, talking about if it's worth the payoff. I was thinking about Sharp Objects. Like, is it worth the payoff if something doesn't come of this, really? And I'm like, yeah, because the drama and the relationships and stuff, like, that's all interesting. It's good writing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm enjoying it each week as a separate episode. But it also made me think of stuff like Zodiac and maybe another film I don't really want to spoil, but where, you never find out who the killer is. Like, I wonder if something like Sharp Objects, who's, it's about a murder and a series of murders. Like, I wonder if a show could pull that off, because a movie's one thing if it's like,
But the Zodiac is also based on
real life.
true
Yeah,
events.
but I'm
based
just
on.
saying.
Yeah, but the Zodiac killer doesn't
But I'm
exist.
saying, why couldn't you make a fictional one where nothing was ever resolved and it still be good? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Well, that was
because-
what the intention for Twin Peaks was to never
Yeah.
solve, like, the main murder behind it.
Yeah,
but-
because it's Zodiac could be completely fictional and it would still be as good. Like, you should leave that stuff at the door.
It is fiction.
Well,
but-
the movie is a heavily fictionalized account.
No,
but-
I'm saying, but there is no real Zodiac killer. It's all made up.
Well, that's an opinion,
No,
but
it's correct.
but it was
But
a
what-
definite cultural thing.
Would audiences turn on something like Sharp Objects or something that was like 10 or 12 hours long, and there was no resolution, and that was the end?
Because that's life. A lot of times,
But I
things
think,
don't
Yeah, that's what
go
I'm saying.
I think there's a difference though when it's a prestige HBO drama
Yeah.
starring like a big actress like Amy Adams. I think there's a different set of expectations for that
True.
versus a show on Fox.
Well, here, we got better.
I want to make a
there.
CSI type show, procedural every episode. They never solve the case.
Well, what they need to do is they need to like do something like the Sharp Objects, where they have this real long, like drama filled, whatever it is, like murder investigation.
Yeah.
Then the last episode, like the very end, kicks off into like an old episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and have Robert Stack narrate it, and it's never been solved.
If you have any information, please.
Yeah, that's how they should end it. Like that would be like, what?
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's. I mean, I watched some other stuff.
Don't
but
take my idea if you come with that idea.
That's pretty much.
But
it.
yeah, so now we can move into our discussion of Hot Fuzz, the 2007 movie from Edgar Wright that was about a skilled London police officer being transferred to a small town that's harboring a dark secret. That's my paraphrasing of the IMDb summary.
This was his sophomore wide release film because he'd done other features before.
Because like in terms of like his big movies, it was
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then after Hot Fuzz, he had other stuff in there because he had done Scott Pilgrim and
Then I think he did World's End.
World's End.
He was trying to do Ant-Man.
And then Ant-Man, he was on that movie up until they even had Paul Rudd cast. And then it was up until like a year before it was supposed to shoot. And then he got, he parted ways from the project. And to me, that was a huge, huge bummer because his stylistic sense was so strong. It's like, oh, what would one of these movies look like? Because even Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn, before he got fired recently, he had pretty strong creative control over it. But I still don't think they let him go as far with the editing and the visual sense as Edgar Wright typically does in his films.
Yeah.
Because if you have a Marvel movie where it's got all this kinetic editing and all these, transition and cuts and the way that he was doing that stuff, I think that film fans and Edgar Wright fans would have enjoyed it. But I think that general audiences would be like, why the fuck is it, like, why isn't it the same as Iron Man?
Yeah.
And
I showed... What did I show to Arnie the first? I think I showed Arnie. This was back when his apartment was like in the South End. Like, it was a long time ago.
South End.
And I showed him Scott Pilgrim,
Yeah.
and he was like, "What is going on? I can't even keep up with." Like he couldn't
Yeah.
process what was going on in that film through some of it.
So I think that, like, if you watch Scott Pilgrim, because that movie's more of a super hyperkinetic editing than most of his other stuff, and it's so out there. Like, and I think too, he wanted Ant-Man to be more like its own self-contained story that didn't have all the tendrils in it to be pulled into the Avengers and things. And just Marvel's like, well, no, we want this to, have a similar feel to the other ones. Because you can have stylistic flourishes like music and things like that, but in terms of editing and visuals, we can't have these kinetic quick cuts. And I mean, maybe they would be a little bit looser on that at some point, but just it seems like that was something that was just, in theory, would have been amazing. But
I also wonder
if
if the budget would have ballooned because he's doing on these other films that he does, but it is there's not as many moving pieces as something like I don't know. It just seemed like there's not as many moving pieces as something on a Marvel film with, I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong here, but it just seems like they might say, okay, well, we're going to you have a certain size crew or whatever. Like, I wonder if he could have been that nimble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like he has to have a lot of setups and a lot of, very quickly done. Like, could this Marvel film been as nimble on the production side? Would they have let him, or would they say, hey, no, we want to, I don't know. I clue.
I think too, this is all pre Thor Ragnarok.
Well, I think Taika Waititi, they did give him a way more freedom than I would have thought they would have given
Because
him.
they had a franchise that was stagnant, that was a marquee character that wasn't really good. So like, all right, this isn't working. There you go.
Well, Thor worked best in ensembles when he wasn't the focus because but then the Thor Ragnarok kind of revitalized the character, took the piss out of him while also making him what worked best.
Yeah, I wonder if now
I think that,
but see, they didn't separate on bad terms, so there is a possibility he could come back.
But he would not be able to come back to because Peyton Reed did both Ant-Man.
Yeah, I was saying
so
he's probably not. But I'm saying, but I
couldn't imagine him wanting to come back though, because he worked for 7 years on that. Yeah. It was because he had even shown test footage at Comic-Con that they had shot of Ant-Man stuff, like pre-visualization and all that.
Yeah.
They had an entire little heist segment that he had shot that they showed. I couldn't imagine somebody wanting to go back into that world or wheelhouse after having what you worked on for 6 or 7 years taken away.
Money fixes a lot of things.
But Hot Fuzz. So Hot Fuzz was, you had Shaun of the Dead, where you had Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And that movie was one where a lot of people talked about it. And on the college circuit, I think a lot of college students loved it and watched it, because I remember seeing multiple people watching it in their dorm rooms or talking about it when I was in college, because that was where I watched it one time. I think was somebody's dorm room, maybe. I'm trying to remember. But it was just something that I remember hearing about, because at that time you had, in that same general couple year range, you had 28 Days Later, Shaun of the Dead, and Dawn of the Dead, the remake.
You talk about watching it in people's dorms. Are you talking about Shaun of the Dead? You said Hot Fuzz.
Or
you're talking
Shaun
about
of the Dead.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw Hot
You said Hot
Okay.
Fuzz and dorm.
Well, okay, I'm confusing everything here. I'm just saying, but with Shaun of the Dead, so Edgar Wright had this kind of movie that was kind of like a cult hit. It still made, it made I think $14-15 million in the US, so it made some money compared to its budget. And it got recognition, but it was more of a, movie people and internet movie people were aware of it and watched it, and college kids and stuff. And it was British humor, so I think a lot of general mainstream Americans I don't get it. Why the Queen? What? But I think it was just one of those things where that was a specific sensibility. So then Hot Fuzz came out, and I think it was grew on the success in the UK and was something everybody was aware of and liked. And then in the U.S., grew a little bit more, grew his fan base a little bit more, and people watched it because, kind of the parody of a genre, and it referenced American movies in Point Break and Bad Boys. So it referenced American movies more so than more Britishisms, but then it still had a lot of British things But
it's still very much a British take on American, movies, though it was never we're talking about movies. When he goes in toward the end of the movie, he's at the gas station and he's like, "Is that all you need?" And he looks over and he sees Bad Boys and Point Break, and there's a couple of Chuck Norris films and the Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Then he grabs the Eastwood looking 70s aviators. I just like those little touches.
Well, and two, so that was something. So Derek, you and our dad.
Yeah, me and him
we all went and saw Hot Fuzz. And what's funny was in the theater, he reacted to it a lot and seemed to enjoy it. but then after the fact, it was like, oh no, I didn't like it that much. And it's just like, it's just because it was not American?
Or expectations of it.
No, what it was is him and my brother just argued about different stuff because he knew that William liked the movie. Oh, the movie's bad. And it's like, it has nothing to do with the movie. You enjoyed it when you watched it.
But, I think like with Hot Fuzz, you hear Hot Fuzz, like that's a, good title. Because, people across, here even refer to the cops as the Fuzz. So having it called Hot Fuzz and being about cops makes a lot of sense. And
what was the original title? It was a different title, and I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember.
I totally forgot that it used to have a different one.
A Couple of Dicks. Wasn't that the name of that Kevin Smith movie before it became Cop Out?
Maybe, yeah.
But, so you had, so Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, they were growing their name to some extent. They were getting to be more well-known overall. But Shaun of the Dead was not the level of success of, the Dawn of the Dead remake made more money.
But Shaun of the Dead was better.
But I think, at this point, Shaun of the Dead is one that probably more people have rewatched.
If you gave me the option to have one and the other one cease to exist, bye-bye Dawn of the Dead.
A million times over. Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for Shaun of the Dead, and I thought it looked really funny, and I just didn't make it to theaters to watch it. And then I was working at GameStop with a friend he's a little bit older than me, but huge film fanatic, so... I think I brought him up when we talked about the RoboCop episode, how he had the Criterion disc and stuff.
Yeah.
My friend Fred, and he was like, when Shaun of the Dead was coming out, I was like, okay, it's coming out on DVD.
Yeah.
I was like, should I buy this film? Because I just happened to miss it in theaters. And he's like, oh yes. He's like, I'm telling you, you'll love it. It'll be your thing. Just buy it.
Yeah.
And I bought like a double pack of that and Dawn of the Dead because I think it came out at the same time.
Yeah.
I actually bought it from like Myers. And then I watched that and I loved it. And he was like, okay, now I'm going to show you Spaced.
Yeah.
And he brought that in because he had the region, whatever region it was, disc, and he had a region free player. You know? So we watched Spaced at work. And then I don't know if he let me borrow his player or what, or if I figured out a way to rip those or whatever. But then like Hot Fuzz, I was like all in on it and could not wait for that.
So Derek, did you ever watch Spaced?
No.
Because it was on Hulu for a while, I think.
It's phenomenal.
Because it is, so some of the same people, because you had Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in it, and some of the other people who are in his movies. Wasn't Peter Serafinowicz in it?
Yes.
And then some of the people who were in Shaun of the Dead were in it.
There's a lot of the similar cast from Shaun of the Dead.
The landlord, they have a landlord in there who is one of the bar owners in Hot Fuzz. Is the female. Yeah,
so that shows just like that sensibility. And it has like Star Wars references and
there's gotta watch that.
And there's a paintball episode. So it's a really fun show.
It's probably one of my favorite shows.
And they had mentioned for a while there was like they had shot a pilot for an American remake. It's like, to me, if you take out Edgar Wright in that style, that show doesn't exist because it's the entire hook to the show was the style of it and the specific actors they had.
Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson. They said it was very personal to them because they were the writers on it. Edgar Wright directed every episode, and Jessica Stevenson and Simon Pegg wrote them and are kind of the two leads. But it's a huge cast, like phenomenal cast.
Well, it's funny like watching this movie because it ties into like we just talked about Mission Impossible. Something be really funny because this was after his first Mission Impossible.
Yeah, Mission Impossible 3 was 2006.
So he'd already been in that. But it'd be funny if they somehow retcon the end of this movie. Ethan Hunt shows up and it recruits him. So he's like super. Because like the Mission Impossible movies, like Simon Pegg's just kind of like
a tech guy.
Well, he just always gets caught. Like that's his thing. Like he always gets beat up and caught. So it'd be funny that he was like the same character in both movies, but he's like super good in Hot Fuzz. But then when he goes to join the MIF or whatever,
the IMF,
he's just a complete
next to Tom Cruise. Yeah.
He's just nowhere near as good.
Yeah, because it's funny because like watching like Spaced and Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg's characters are kind of the underachieving,
and in this he's very good.
It's scruffy loser.
Like his
type.
character from Shaun of the Dead is very much like building off of Spaced. Like what I mean? It feels like they made a movie version of Spaced and kept his character somewhat similar, changed around Nick Frost's and a few other things, obviously, but it very much feels like it is a spiritual sequel, and you know what I mean, in some way.
But then, Hot Fuzz, like Nicholas Angel's like the top cop in London, and that just shows you the difference in expectations for like action heroes, like in the U.S. versus overseas. Because even though Simon Pegg got in good shape for the movie, an American movie audience wants to see Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
They want to see somebody that's got biceps that are, you know.
Well, I do love the little nods where like he's like running, he's doing these really unrealistic front flips over everything, and he's chasing the because I do like the slasher, like the murder character they developed in this looks a lot like the Scream character, just without a mask. But
I mean, it is a lot of black glove killings like giallo films too.
Yeah.
You know, and it is very much. It's not really. The horror's not really scary in it. It is just violent people getting murdered.
Some of it's very violent, especially the church scene. Like,
well, too, you don't have enough investment in any of the characters who are being stalked by the killer to really care that much.
But the point is not supposed to be there. It's like I kind of because I guess full spoilers on this since it's 11 years old.
Full spoilers. It's on Netflix. Go watch it.
I was like how pretty much you have a bunch. You have the. His police sergeant is his dad from Shaun of the Dead. You have the guy that played the Hobbit and Doctor Who in there, right? He's also in Black Panther.
What?
He's from The Office. Martin Freeman.
Okay, yeah,
Martin Freeman, Bill Nye.
Bill Nye.
And then
Not the science guy.
you have Steve Coogan, who's like awesome. There's Bill Bailey. There's like a bunch of British
Stephen
comedians.
Merchant.
Stephen Merchant.
There's a bunch of really noticeable, like
Bill Bailey was in a bunch of stuff, including Black Books and other
What
series.
was the name of Stephen Merchant's character? Is like something that sounded like Piss Taker.
Oh yeah,
PIS or PI Staker.
Yeah, Timothy Dalton, which is a Bond.
Timothy Dalton.
So you had a bunch of recognizable people in this, and I was telling them I always remember this is another Mandela effect I had. Like I just thought Roger Moore was in it. I always remember Roger Moore being in it. I'm like, oh,
he was in
Timothy Dalton.
something. I'm forgetting.
But
what
I just
was.
really thought it was Roger Moore, and then it's like, oh no, it's Timothy Dalton.
Oh yeah, Timothy Dalton's probably a bit younger than Roger Moore.
Yeah,
a bit more
but
spry.
it just you remember certain things.
Well, he had Pierce Brosnan in The World's End.
Yeah. But like when you watch that movie, so when Timothy Dalton's character first comes up and he's like, I'm a slasher, it's like right there he laid out. And so you get those kind of funny moments that are kind of just like foreshadowing everything.
This film, so in most horror films or even action films, the first scene is an action scene or somebody getting killed. Like this is interesting because it starts out with just, hey, here's Simon Pegg's background or Nicholas Angel's background.
Yeah, it gives you like how competent
it just goes from there, and you're just in it. And originally I envisioned, this is going to be a big action film. There's going to be some crazy action set pieces every 20 minutes or something like that, and it was not that at all. And I loved the film when I walked out, but I thought I still like Shaun of the Dead more, I think.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'm gonna lean more towards Shaun of the Dead, but I actually like Nick Frost a little bit better in this because you first get him, he's like the talent. You see him like getting drunk and you arrest him, and then like the next.
That was my impression walking out of the theater, but also I'd seen Shaun of the Dead like 20 or 30 times.
Yeah.
And then I started watching this. This is my favorite Edgar Wright film, and I've probably watched this one, definitely watched it more than any, and it's probably like one of my favorite films ever. Like I think this has the perfect balance for me of everything in it. Like I love The World's End, but this feels like it has so much more attention to detail to things. I liked, what's his most recent one?
Baby Driver.
I liked Baby Driver quite a bit, but just something about Hot Fuzz I feel like is a perfect inflection of Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, the whole cast, Edgar Wright, the writing, directing,
Nick Frost
everything I think is just at the peak here, and it is just like...
Well, he just feels like a big baby. Like I think of him like you don't even think of him as being like an adult. He literally feels like he's like 16.
Well, he's a more like because in Shaun of the Dead he was comic relief and just kind of the hanger on to his friend that really was holding him back. And but like in Hot Fuzz he's just a more likable character and he's just more of
I just love like how he has an infatuation with American movies. So like when their bonding experience is Point Break and Bad Boys 2.
And he's like, and then I remember like the funny moment like in the trailers, like, is it true there's a place in a man's head that if you shoot it, it will blow up? And there's like these just kind of moments, and he's asking that when they're talking to a group of kids.
Which I mean, it kind of makes sense for him also being naive to what's happening with his dad. Like, of course, the rest of the police officers, they're probably not as close, obviously, with the police chief because that's all a work thing. But even at the end, he's just like, I thought it was a secret club. Like, it makes sense for him being a little naive too in the whole situation and what is happening.
I think what I love too, though, you have like all these you have these like older British people that are like super nice, and at the end of the movie when everything goes down, they just like pull all these guns out of nowhere. So you had this like shootout at the OK Corral.
Another thing that's we'll get back. So basically, the plot of the film is he gets sent out of London because he's too good.
Yeah.
He gets sent to Stanford. Is it Stanford or Stanford?
Stanford. I think it's Stanford.
Stanford. And so he's there. All the police officers, you know,
Eat
everybody
cake
just
every day.
thinks everything's an accident that happens. And I think part of it is because they're so lazy, they don't actually want to work. So they are fine just assuming.
Well, the police chief also gives them like cake and
Yes,
desserts.
that's the
every
thing.
day.
Like that's the thing. Everybody's sweetened up, and they just, oh, this is a great town. These are all accidents, and they kind of want to believe that because they want to believe their town is so great, and they also don't like working that much. It seems like, and then of course from there, murders happen, and then we find out it's a big conspiracy that the whole town has orchestrated this because they want to basically. It's almost like a gentrification.
Yeah. And they have
Some
like one
Yes.
area that's up for sale, but if it were to be sold to the right people, they would essentially make it like a mini mall kind of, and they don't
so
want that.
any as they say gypsies or jugglers or whoever comes through town
Or goldmen, like the
they
guy
get
that the
they
statue
get
got.
wiped out. Anybody who steps out of line in any regards gets very harsh punishment. And it is because they just want to have this image also, like, they're way overboard on the authoritative, even though it seems like it is this nice sweet town where nothing happens. And that Nicholas Angel is actually the one that's too harsh. They act like he's the harsh one.
Well-
and then he finds that out, basically goes after him. And then in the shootout too, I also think it's interesting and it's not disappointing that nobody really gets killed with a gun here. Everybody gets shot in the shoulders. Like, I wonder if that was a specific angle as far as like, hey, gun violence kind of sucks, in real life. Gun movies are fun. Cop movies are fun. Let's not, or was it a thing where it's like, this would be too harsh to have him kill this entire town of old people?
Well, yeah,
Where
I think that
in another film, if it was, say, a whole, if you watch an action film and they were fighting a whole group of people of other nationalities, if they were getting killed, some people might be like, oh, whatever, they were bad guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where these are bad people. Like, I really would like to talk to him about his decision not to kill anybody in this.
Well, I think too, like you have
With a gun, like-
we have the preacher or the priest come out, which was the bad guy from Indiana Jones. And the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He just pulls out the double pistols and starts shooting.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is kind of weird if you're going to gun down a older priest in the middle of the town, even though he's bad.
That's the weird thing about, like, it's an interesting decision. Like, it's one thing to have these as the villains.
Yeah.
And also when he comes into town and he kicks that old lady in the face.
Oh, that's
and when I was in the
so
theaters,
good.
that was one of my that was my favorite moment.
He's like
moment in the
karate-
theaters.
he, like, jumps and
I was
karate
like,
kicks
holy
her in the
shit!
face.
So this is what this movie's going to be from now on.
Because I like that in the movie is just he'll go and bloody the nose up and beat up somebody. But here's the thing: if somebody pulls a gun on you, I mean, you could kill them and you're within your rights, especially as a law enforcement officer. But he just goes and karate kicks her in the face.
Yeah, but too, like, they also don't carry firearms. So, but I do love when they're in their little fight in the grocery store. They got like they're throwing pineapples at him at one point.
And they all have their evidence tags on the
they all
guns.
have the evidence tags on the guns, but they're still shooting them. And it's like, so they're throwing a pineapple at you, but they're all terrible shots.
I also love that, you could have turned the audience a lot of ways in this film if Danny would have been in on it. That would have really upset a lot of people because that friendship would have been broken. That trust, like, that's what this movie hinges on a whole lot. And it is like there's no romantic relationships at all. It's he had a relationship that goes south, and now the relationship is the friendship with Danny, and they're kind of learning from each other, of course. But I also like that the police force also isn't all corrupt, like, because it doesn't send a blanket signal of like, hey, law enforcement's corrupt or whatever. Like, they're negligent, but they didn't really,
they're not complicit.
Yeah,
Well, it's
but
just
they
like-
also, as soon as they realized, they said, okay, even though they've been giving him shit the entire movie, once they said, okay, this is clear now, they're ready to do the right thing.
They had the British version Boomhauer, and he's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's got a point there, doesn't he?
So,
Yeah,
like,
so-
that's where it all turned.
Well, then the scene too, where you have the farmer guy that has like the shotgun, and then he's speaking in like gibberish country talk.
Yes.
And then the guy on the police force like translates it to Nick Frost's character, who translates it to Simon Pegg. So it's one of those things where, because I've seen those different.
Well, that's where all the guns came from. He had this old British farmer that has a shit ton of guns.
He's
in
like,
his,
do you have the proper registration for that gun? He's like, for this one I do.
Yeah, but he even has a World War II era like underwater mine.
So it's one of those things where, these different like things with Edgar Wright. It's just, like there's different, I forgot what this video, it was a video essay that talked about like how so many movies get comedy wrong and how they get timing wrong. And it shows for some movies, it shows somebody like when they're going from one city to another, like shows them in a cab, crossing a bridge. It shows like, 3 minutes of montage stuff to show that they're in a new location. As opposed to Hot Fuzz in 15 seconds gets all the information you need.
Yeah, it just shows it real quick.
And they're
cuts.
relegate it to, the second unit director just to shoot some wide shots of a car going down just to get this shot and not really put any thought to it. Where he puts thought. That's what I think this is. I don't know. Obviously, Scott Pilgrim is just insanely detailed as well. But this film is so layered with jokes and humor and every single moment. Like, it just seems like he may have spent the most on this film. And I mean, maybe Shaun of the Dead too, because it was first. But this film and Scott Pilgrim seem the most layered as far as humor and visual gags. But at the same time, all the humor that's in it, he never lets it get in the way of the story of this film.
Yeah.
And it never overtakes the story. It's just like such a good balance, but also some of it you can miss if you're not paying attention or if you don't know what to look. You know what I mean? Like if audience is not watching this film the right way, they may miss a lot of this stuff and not appreciate it as much. But that's what I loved about how layered this film is. Like I was watching it again, for this podcast, and even just the way like so many people are funny in this film, just little moments. The one police officer has like the Spider-Man paint on his face.
Yeah.
Like the way he is holding the popsicle stick with his kid. Like there's just so many, like Simon Pegg, the looks on his face, like the non-vocal responses he has to things when he can't believe people's complicit nature to things or them not believing in him. Like he just looks at people with all these expressions throughout the film. It's like so great. It's just like there's so many things going on. It's not just all dialogue humor or dialogue driven. Or just visual. Like it's just a perfect blend of music, sound effects, so many things just operating on like level 10.
Well, I think my favorite shot of the film, because they kind of set this up because they're watching Point Break and where Keanu Reeves just like, and shoots into the air. So later on in the film, like they're chasing Timothy Dalton and his dad through and the car flips and it's Nick Frost and he has the gun and his dad run off and he does the same exact thing.
That's another,
like that. You just know he's always wanted to do that.
Yeah,
and
he felt it true too. It wasn't just played just for laughs.
Yeah.
That was his dad.
That was his dad.
He didn't do it to some villain that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was his dad. Like this, another thing about this
Now I
film,
want to watch
has
Point Break.
almost the most amount of probably setup and payoffs in any film I know because they constantly will set up something, pay it off, set up, and repeat jokes.
And then they also do a direct thing of Bad Boys 2 because Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are sitting there and the helicopter flies over and they even play
slow
music
motion.
similar. Yeah.
Well, and two, it feels like an episode of Arrested Development and how they layer all these jokes in that come back later.
Yeah. Yes.
And do all these setups, and then
But they pay off and they're very good.
yeah, and then you have just all these like little beats of humor too. There's like the part where Nicholas Angel gets there to the apartment place he's gonna stay, and she's like fascist. And he's like, what? And it's just maybe them pointing at the fact that like this I know better than you super cop could be kind of a fascist character depending on how you handle it.
And then she says it again at the end of the film when she's about to shoot him. She's like fascist.
But
Like,
then after he shoots her, he's like hag.
Yes,
He calls it.
yeah, so you have these
there's
little,
a million of those.
these
in that
little
film.
setups that happen early on is played for jokes that come back later and make sense on a story level too. And like the action stuff, like one thing I did notice was that there's digital blood in this movie during the shootouts. I'm assuming that's probably just because of limitation of budget and time, because digital blood now is very standard and you see it all the time. Even like John Wick had digital blood in it, because I have like a digital blood pack I bought to mess around with for some of our short stuff, and it seems like with this movie I noticed it.
Yeah.
And when you watch it on like a 4K display and stuff like that, it's a little bit easier to notice.
But I don't think
things.
it took away from it.
It didn't take away from it, and I didn't notice it at the time I saw the movie initially, and I don't think most audiences know it or notice. It's just there is a difference in how a squib pack blowing up, because we just watched RoboCop recently where it's all squibs and stuff. So there is a huge difference in what that looks like versus digital blood, because you actually see it explode off of someone. Which they did have some of in the movie, but then they also had the digital blood just to kind of, because the movie was nowhere near as violent as RoboCop.
No.
So I think digital blood, when it's just a little bit here and there, can help them fill out a scene without spending the time and budget of taking to do all that with squibs
and two, sometimes the cuts he has are so fast. Like this may be a half a second frame.
Yeah.
Like and he knows he wants that half second, like he would have to time, you know what I mean? Like to time the stuff there in production and reset with so many setups he has to do for so many angles and everything. Like
all of that practically would have probably cost them a few more million at least in terms of shooting it and time and things like that. So I understand the reason why. It's just something that I noticed a little bit more.
But it does to me. It didn't.
My wife noticed it this time too.
But like, it's not as bad as what was it? Devil's Rejects. Somebody gets a knife in the chest.
Well, actually, the goriest scene in the movie was the church scene, where
that looks really great.
That looks really great, but that's like but. I do like that the reason why they killed the journalist isn't really because of his investigative reporting. It's because he misspelled a bunch of stuff.
That's another thing, too, about how petty they are about everything.
They're petty, yeah.
Like, it's like, we didn't like his acting, her laugh. You know, like
they only killed her because of her laugh. Like, she didn't actually do anything wrong.
And they even didn't like that they misspelled Nicholas Angel's name as Angle a lot.
Yeah.
So even somebody that they themselves kind of would like to just die at that point.
And also, too, like, that's the thing. Whenever everybody has this politeness about him, like even they're talking to Timothy Dalton's character in the supermarket at the end when Nicholas Angel has confronted him, and he's like, well, we know who you are, sissy, and he says like everybody knows about my love for drama in high school, and then the Andys are like, yeah, little sissy, and they make fun of him, and he's like, thank you, Andy's like, everybody's still cordial, you know what I mean? It's just so funny, and they don't even take it personally, like.
And then like the Andys have like the moment like where they duck in and out of frame and come back.
Did he say one of them improvised that? I almost thought he said that because recently he had reposted. Somebody recreated that in Lego form. Did you see that on his Twitter account? Yeah, they recreated it in Lego form, and he said, "Please, somebody cut this into the movie." And they have that first part of the scene, and then the Legos do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I read somewhere or something that like they did that on set. Like that wasn't something he wrote in or directed or initially, for them to do. I think.
Yeah, because it's a moment that I'm sure like in most screenings would elicit laughter just because it's physical comedy and goofy and. It's funny, like, seeing Patty Constantine do like that and then was in one of the Bourne movies in a small role. Yeah. That was, like, a much more serious situation. And then, like, Rafi Spall has been in, what was the movie In the Woods?
In the Woods.
The Ritual.
The Ritual. Yeah. And then apparently he's in the new Jurassic World. So it's just funny seeing, like, that movie now. Like it's also funny. Martin Freeman hasn't really aged that much.
No, he actually looks
11 years.
He actually looks younger now than he did in this movie. Because I remember looking at it, it's like he looks better now than he did.
It's that
then.
long hair.
I think it is the long.
That's
hair.
the long hair he had on the original Run of the Office too.
When he was the Jim character. But so you have Bill Nighy, and you have all these different people in it. I mean, granted, like Bill Nighy's character is like a smaller role,
but it's still just the cameos he has, and even there's a couple other too that like, I'd have to look it up because I don't understand. I don't have the frame of reference for this person that appeared in a lot of these British centric films or TV shows. Like, but even the ones I know, it's just packed with them.
Well, then you look back, like Love Actually had Bill Nighy and Martin Freeman and all these different people, so it's kind of like that era.
Yeah,
because with the Focus Features was that who released Hot Fuzz. So you had like that era where you had that company that released a lot of these things, and Hot Fuzz is a movie that
they were contemporaries too because at the time Space was on, they were competing for whatever the British TV awards were for The Office as well. Yeah. They were on the same time, so I think they had some kinship, and also Martin Freeman is in Shaun of the Dead also.
Yeah,
because he plays essentially the Simon Pegg character.
On the other group.
Oh yeah, okay. I forgot about that.
The lady, the woman that is leading the other group, she is the other main character on Space.
Yeah.
So that's why they had her in there as well too. It was kind of just like, all these stuff with their TV shows together and all these things. Like there's so many in references.
So worldwide, Hot Fuzz made $80 million. In the U.S., it made $23 million. So for the type of budget and things that it had,
what was the budget?
It doesn't say. I would. Like, based on the level of stuff, I mean...
No more than 30.
Yeah, I'd say like 20 probably. Because Baby Driver was made on a budget of like $40 million.
Yeah, I've looked up this stuff before, but I can't remember.
And two, like a lot of this stuff is kind of hard to verify because it's not really verified numbers and budgets often change because the Harry Potter movies still technically haven't turned a profit.
According to Wikipedia, it was made for $12 million.
Okay, so that would explain some of the lack of squibs because that was just so much extra time to shoot that time properly.
So this was made for $12 million. Clerks 2 was made for $5 million in place of movies.
So you watch some movies,
and I love Clerks 2. I'm just saying
the fact that Hot Fuzz it would be made for $12 million. If you compare that to a lot of contemporary stuff where it's made for way more. You're like, what did they spend that on?
Yeah.
Because some movies, like, you have the cast and that will be what is your money. But some movies, like, it doesn't really have anybody of note. It's not shot particularly well. It doesn't look like they shot in any lavish locations. What did they spend $30 million on?
And part of me wonders if also, too, the budget is they got the cast because of this, like, national pride thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's very British films, and he was just, like, for me, a rock star after Shaun of the Dead to many people, in the film community. Like, it was like, okay, this is, and he did everybody justice. He made this a film that I'm sure a lot of British people could be very proud of, because it wasn't just something like, what's his last film? I keep forgetting the name of it.
The World's End?
No, his last.
Oh, Baby Driver.
Where it's set in Atlanta, and you don't even know that it could have been from a British director, or what I mean.
Like, that was very much his take on a movie set in America.
So I wonder if, like, he got so many of these cameos and people, like, in these larger roles and stuff, like, to do it for so cheap because, like, hey, this is our boy. You know what I mean? Like, he's making this film set in the countryside. Like,
in that general time frame is when Bill Nighy was Davy Jones in the Pirates of the Caribbean series, which I'm sure
was he in Underworld too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate Beckinsale cuts his head in half or whatever.
Spoilers.
So you have, like, kind of an all-star cast with, like, and then, like, the town itself has a lot of people in it that you know from things, and
Which this is Edgar Wright's town.
and then, like, the doctor
he grew up in, and the supermarket was the one he worked at when he was younger.
The town doctor was Don Raphael, like the bad guy from The Legend of Zorro, back when they would cast all these Caucasian actors to be, because, like, Anthony Hopkins was supposed to be Spanish and stuff. It's like, oh, okay. But so it has this, like, stacked cast when you watch it, and some of them are just in kind of bit roles.
Yeah.
We had Steve Coogan. Did we bring him up?
I
I brought him
he was
up.
one of the cops. And it's funny because when he's they're telling Nick Angel all the information, and then they keep bringing in, like, the next person up in line.
And it's almost like, as far as British royalty, you know what I mean? Like, Martin Freeman was like well known at the time because of The Office and everything, but that was, and then now you have Steve Coogan, who was a little bit more prolific, and then Bill Nye, who is the most.
And it's funny because, like, they're like, do you really want to call in the Inspector Chief? And he's like, yes. Like, are you sure? He's like, yes, do it. And they're like, are you sure? He's like, yes. And then he just walks right in the door.
Yeah, he was just sitting outside waiting.
So it's just funny how that visual humor works. And that's, to me, like, something I've noticed a lot of movies, and, dealing with, like, seeing, like, local independent filmmakers and the things like YouTube skits and things that a lot of people find funny are just characters talking over. So was it the Michael Bay Transformers movies? Shia LaBeouf's character would not shut up in those movies. He was talking, everybody was talking over each other, and it was just nonstop dialogue. And to me, that doesn't create comedy. If it's just people talking over people, and it's like, I just only want to do this. What do you think about it? And it's somebody's like, to me, that's not comedic. To me, it's timing and situational. And Edgar Wright, like, this movie is a perfect example of, like, the police chief stuff. Like, do you want the Inspector Chief?
Yeah.
Well,
like,
but I
those
think you
scenes.
look
It's a
at
different
that-
style of comedy.
Yeah, but you look at that, but then you look at, like, a movie like Lethal Weapon and how differently those situations went. I think is also where you get some comedy
Well, and
from,
you
because
have,
it would have been
like-
it's so vastly different.
And then, like, Shaun of the Dead, you have this scene where they're sitting in the bar at the table, and they're like, it's not like they don't like Ed. And it's like, it's not that I don't like you. And you just pan over, and he's there. So you have these comedic scenes that, like, to me, that's what works. That's what's funny. As opposed to now, a lot of people seem to think that comedy is just people saying ridiculous things over each other.
Well, it's kind of like the Family Guy effect, because that's kind of the Family Guy humor, is just how absurd and ridiculous can you get,
Well, and two,
whereas they don't really worry about
Hot Fuzz. It's like the joke we just talked about with, like, the Inspector General or whatever. That joke plays out, it's like less than a minute.
Yeah.
And it plays out so quick, and it works, as opposed to people now, like, a lot of movies, that scene would be a 5-minute scene.
Yeah. Well, it almost, to me, feels very, like, Mel Brooks-esque. Like, you want me to get him? Want me to get him? Want me to make it the big deal?
Yeah.
And he's in the room with
Yeah.
him. So I did kind of like that, because that, to me, felt very
He just,
much like a
says
Mel
his
Brooks.
first name too. He's whatever his first name was. He just says his first name, and
And
he's like,
and then,
to me, that felt like, I just watched Blazing
Well, then when
Saddles.
Nicholas,
very
like, when he
good.
goes, like, we'll see what the troops have to say about this, and he walks outside, and they have, like, the congratulation
and
thing.
then it pops off.
So you just have, like, these quick cut beat comedy things. To me, like, situational comedy like that is what's funny, or what I find enjoyable more so than people just talking over each other, unless there's, like, a specific point to it.
Or if it's something like, that is trying to be more naturalistic.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying it has, like, I was listening to something talking about the, you know, kind of the way Woody Allen films do this and how it is filmed very much in the moment. Like, you know, he'll shoot long scenes with no cuts, people kind of talking over each other, just like we talk over each other. You know what I mean? Like on the podcast and stuff. Like, it's the same thing if you were going for a certain naturalistic, different type of humor. But Edgar Wright goes for very much in this cinematic world type of tightly constructed humor, and he like is the master of it, you know, right now. Like, I don't know of anybody else that has that much control and consistency and like success rate. Like, you know, a lot of comedies, you're like, well, like 80% of the stuff was funny, so overall it was pretty good, but it's just like, yeah, okay.
Well, then,
but you know, it's 100. He's batting 100%.
You know who it would have been interesting his take on what's the Eli Roth remake they just did?
Death Wish?
Yeah.
If you'd seen Edgar Wright do Death Wish,
It would have been very bad. Much better.
well, I think it's just though too. So some directors or writers or people like that, like Edgar Wright, seems to like to kind of go through a genre and dissect it and pick out the elements, like cultural reference points, to kind of make part of what he's doing, while at the same time subverting it and try to do something a little bit different.
Which they watched, what, like 500 cop action films for this or something?
Yeah.
I remember them talking about that.
But we were talking about the humor real quick. This is going back and taking a step back just before I forget. The thing I remember the most about Shaun of the Dead is the argument about dogs can't look up. Like,
Yeah.
No, they can't. No, their eyes can't go up. And I just remember, like, while they're fighting the zombies, that was an argument they were having.
Yeah.
So that's still something today, like, I just say to
Yes,
Courtney to make
yeah.
her mad. Like, dogs
Yeah.
can't look up.
Yeah,
So-
I do too.
You know, and it's like, I just love that little throwaway
in the code.
argument line that's been, you know, like, that's still something I think about,
So-
like, on a regular basis.
But it's one of those things where you have people like Edgar Wright who I think would dissect it and at least, you know, so it's one like Eli Roth is aware of film history.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't see that translate into like, you know, Green Inferno. I mean, how many, there were not a ton of those Italian like cannibal movies that got made back in the 80s. There weren't a lot,
There's like 10 of them.
but that's
not
not,
a
But there
lot,
weren't
but I
like
can think-
as many American action
Yeah.
films.
you had, you know, Campbell Holocaust and Campbell Ferox.
Well,
Like, some
even
of these other
even the
ones.
zombie movies though, like I'm gonna throw right in there with that because they're very similar. They're not.
What I'm just saying, what I'm saying though is,
You got Ric Flair in the water. Ric Flair looking. Oh, never mind. That was House of the Dead. No, ain't worry about that.
okay, I'm just,
There was a zombie that looked like Ric Flair that bit a shark or something under the water. I'm getting my
yeah,
movies
but that's
confused.
nothing like Green Inferno.
Yeah, it was actually good. Not Green Inferno. The zombie.
my
fighting the
point
shark.
was, when you watch an Edgar Wright movie, it feels like it fits in the genre and it's of the genre, but it's aware of the genre and it makes references to points within, like it very specifically does that. As opposed to like Eli Roth feels like they may be aware of the history of all of it, but then they just have a joke about getting cannibals high. When they get the munchies, they want to eat somebody.
Yeah, it's like the first pass thing about like, oh, what are my ideas on how to do? Okay, there's my first pass. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he hasn't really thought about it and think like, oh, is this worth doing or is this worth, you know what I mean, dissecting
Which
this
is
way?
why, like, somebody like Anna Wingard, when he did The Guest, I was so impressed by and enjoyed it
Yeah.
because it was a slasher movie through the lens of like a Terminator 80s like house guest exploitation film. And then that's why I was disappointed by Blair Witch essentially being like a straightforward found footage movie. And then Death Wish being, I think, kind of a mismatch of writing
Death Note.
or Death Note. Yeah, Death Wish, not
Yeah, Death Note was not very good.
yeah, Death Note was source material that was ripe for mining, that was kind of adapted in a way that didn't really take advantage of the source material's strengths. And then just beyond that, tonally it was kind of odd. And I think that was a movie too, an adaptation. Whatever they did, people would have hated. Some group would have hated any element of it. But, you know, getting back to Hot Fuzz, I think it's just a movie that, like, if you're wanting to get into making films, I think what you would be good to do is go watch like Well, also I saw this thing the other day. Point Break and the Fast and the Furious, the first Fast and the Furious, are the same movie.
Yeah.
Undercover FBI agent, Pretty Boy, white Pretty Boy, goes and gets in with a group of extreme sports enthusiasts who are using it to pull off heist. Initially points the finger at the wrong group because he doesn't want to believe that his group of extreme sports people are the ones who are actually doing it. And then at the end has to let the charismatic leader go because they have a bond of kinship.
Yeah.
And he also falls for a waitress or something. So there's all these elements that are almost the exact same damn movie. But like watch Point Break and Bad Boys and just watch some buddy cop movies, then watch Hot Fuzz and see it kind of deconstruct while still being in the genre.
Or like even Lethal Weapon.
Because there's Lethal Weapon. Like there's all these movies where I think, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are very great at. They're in the genre that they're pointing, kind of poking at.
But even poking a nod at the like spaghetti westerns from the Clint Eastwood era, though.
Yeah.
Because like him riding in on the white horse with the
Which the
double
horse
shot-
is only used for that.
For that, and then
they have
it's
the
just
stand
gone.
up. And they have the stand up.
And then you have like the slasher elements and the kind of giallo, like black glove, cloak figure. They just
also throw a little bit of Max Payne in there because when they go into the bar, both him and Nick Frost jump in with dual
Well, I think
guns.
that was
That's
also
John
a
Woo.
John Woo.
Yeah, that's
so,
very
So
face
Derek
off,
not getting
yeah.
where things are referencing.
Well, look, Max Payne
was
Max
referencing
Payne-
John Woo,
Yeah.
so
there weren't any doves though. So
Max Payne? Yeah, there's like an entire montage.
I meant Hot Fuzz.
actually, I
okay.
think there was.
oh, there was.
I think there may have been for some reason. I didn't notice them this time, but I had watched this film and dissected a lot of scenes just on my own a long time ago. And actually, at one point, I was working on a video for the site back when we did them, and I just felt like I couldn't do it justice. Like, because this is one of the films I love the most. I'm like, and I just abandoned it. But there may have been doves. I can't remember birds. I can't remember for sure.
But
even that, like they don't kill them with bullets, but the bear trap is more brutal.
Yeah,
than, like.
but he still lived with the bear trap. 'Cause,
Well,
like,
It was her. It was fell on the girl.
Oh,
woman.
okay.
Yeah.
But I know, like at the end, like
Yes, yeah.
they do
Everybody
the pictures. They're all like beat up, and Timothy Dalton still has a little house
Yeah.
through his mouth. They never took it out.
Which is another thing I thought about this movie too is obviously they want to have the best village and they're destroying it all in the process, and I think that's his parents standing there as the judges that enter the town.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that that's something that they didn't even like ever bring up, that the judges were coming to town.
well, they said they were in that
day.
contest.
Yeah, but they
And
never
then
like
you
gave
see
a
the
date.
judges,
Yeah,
and
you
they're
see
just
it.
looking at everything going
Yeah.
on.
I think one of the best parts is when you have the woman on the bicycle that has the guns and is like dual shooting. So when he opens the door, she flips
That's
over
when
it.
he gets into the
I
fight.
love- yeah, I
He
love
designs
that. It's so good.
But also too, it's funny that their model village of being like the best, safest place. At the end, he has a fight with Timothy Dalton on that model village that gets destroyed, and it's almost like at the same time, this facade of their perfect model village on a larger scale is being broken down. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, here's what it really is, and also being shot up and everything
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so I guess
it's very good.
I guess we can move in, given our scores on this, and wrap up our discussion of Hot Fuzz. So, giving this a score out of 10. So I guess Sean, we'll let you start. What would you give it?
11. Yeah, easy at 10 for me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is one of my favorite films of all time. Like I said, I watched this so many times, and I grew to love it even more. And just this is just an amazing achievement, I think.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I just remember there being a little bit more WRX in it than there was, because but that's the very
the
end.
car.
Yeah, but yeah, it's 10 out of 10 because I haven't watched this probably since me and you had saw it in the theaters. If I had watched it, it hadn't been very, because I watched Shaun of the Dead a lot.
Yeah.
I hadn't watched this in a very long time, and like it's just extremely good. Simon Pegg's at his best in this. Like, it's just such like everybody you like him and Nick Frost. You love them so much. They're so good in what they're doing. Nick Frost is like the big baby character.
It also ends like kind of the other two films where you think, or essentially one of them is dead, or you think Nick Frost is
Yeah.
dead, and then actually, oh no, everything's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, this
and
one,
even
everything's
Shaun the Dad, yeah, he's still dead, but they still have that friendship. This too,
Yeah.
you think, oh, he's dead. They set it up, and then he comes
but
back.
then, I just love everything about it, and I just love that everything about Nick Frost is just being in those American movies. Like, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So, like, the very end when he jumps in front of the shotgun blast, like, that's just him, like, still being from one of those movies.
And then he's talking
Yeah.
like, did you tell him to chill out?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. He's like, no, I didn't. But earlier I told him to take a nap and I knocked him out. Which, that's one thing we didn't talk about. Was I don't know what the guy's name was, but the big goofy.
Yeah, so he's the Hound on Game of Thrones, which a lot
But-
of people are surprised. Like, I was like, oh.
But 10 out of 10. To me, I don't see how anybody could go into this movie and not find something enjoyable.
So I
I think you just had to be a nitpicky person.
if
and not like it.
if you're a film fan, you're going to enjoy it. I could see someone who wants literally Bad Boys with Martin Lawrence and
Yes.
Will Smith jaw jacking back and forth, and that kind of, like I said, just talking over each other comedy. I could see somebody that wants that specifically. They want the Michael Bay movie. If that's exactly what they want, this subverts it and kind of lovingly points fingers at things while doing it itself. They're going to be that that pisses off people who want the straight genre
But the thing this movie does so good is like it's not poking fun at those movies. It's like this is what is fun in
But
those
to some
movies.
people, though, if you reference the genre you're in the movie, and you don't just give them the straightforward exactly what they expected, Lethal Weapon 8 or Bad Boys 3, if you don't give them that, they get upset. So
I
I can
don't know
see,
if it's like they don't process, like they don't know how to process, like, oh, I'm supposed to think about a movie a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's the
making
same-
them think about it, and they don't want
It's
to
the
think
same
about
thing,
movies
so-
on any other certain level. I don't know.
it's the same thing where like. Trying to think of it, like not be like a beer snob, but there's some people that
Beer snob.
if you give them like a high end, like a really good beer, but it's not Bud Light, they're gonna knock it off the table and
It's
say
me
this is terrible.
because those beers suck. I've only had
Oh,
one good.
God.
No, look, I ain't getting into that. Just they're not good. They're not good. I don't want a honey mead.
So
beer. I don't like Bud Light though.
well, the point was
I was excited to watch this film when
Yeah, I was
Derek
too. 'Cause it was-
suggested it. So, and I was like, and Nicole was like, you don't even need to watch this because I was like, my time was
so many.
limited, and I watched Blair Witch first. I did, and like because I stayed up last night and I got up early to finish it. She's like, you don't even need to watch this because she's seen it a million times too.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care.
I gotta watch it.
I wanted to watch it with a commentary again, which I've seen all the special features, all the commentaries, but I couldn't find I have 2 versions of this. I have 3 actually. I think I have the HD DVD because it used to be just on Universal disc. And then I had the Blu-ray, and then I bought like a triple pack. I couldn't find any of that, so
'Cause I
I,
have,
couldn't watch the commentaries. I watched it on Vudu.
I have 5 or 6 HD DVDs because I got 5 when I bought this laptop. I had an HD DVD drive, so
Yeah.
it came with 5 of them. I have like the Thing and a few other ones. I think Darkman's one of them too.
You
And
had,
then-
what was the Michael J. Fox?
Frighteners.
Frighteners.
Because there weren't a ton of movies on HD DVD.
Yeah.
And then I got a 5th one because somebody bought me the wrong thing for birthday or Christmas or something. I was like, well, I don't know if I can play this.
I've got a decent amount because Universal. It was all a Universal
Yeah.
thing, so I bought the add-on for the 360. Like cheap used. It got a
Yeah.
disc because I worked at GameStop and I got some like massive discounts. I got it for like a little over $100. But yeah, that's where I got like Army of Darkness. That was the first
Yeah.
HD version of that
I
I
think you
could
had
get.
that too.
Yeah, I think I might have that.
Yeah.
You had Army of Darkness.
But
that's the first
I'll have to,
one
I'll have to go
watched
look
it.
when you're done. But yeah, so like similarly, I would in terms of like real scores where you're saying like critically, at the minimum it's a 9, 9.5, 10. But like in terms of just overall enjoyment of it, like
10.
this, it's a 10. Like I love watching this. And
This is
Shaun
the
the
first
Dead.
all triple 10 we've ever.
Yeah, we've never had all.
And it's one of those things where I think too, just loving Shaun the Dead and Hot Fuzz so much made the expectations for the world's end so high.
And it's a different little. It's
It's
kind
a
of
different
film.
style of movie.
Yeah.
But so love this movie. Definitely recommend if you haven't rewatched it in a while, give it another watch because there's just so much in there.
and it's
to
on Netflix
catch.
right now. So if you have Netflix, check it out.
Yeah, or you should probably have a copy of it. But yeah, so that'll wrap up our discussion of Hot Fuzz. If you're listening via iTunes, do us a huge favor, leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast. You can find, or if you're listening on YouTube, we also enjoy seeing comments there. If you always send us an email at podcast@housebyvastore.com. You can find all the work we're doing at housebyvastore.com. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So we have some stuff in the works, so keep an eye out. There might be some information on shorts or something. So, but make sure to follow all that. You can go to housebyvastore.com. If you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Instagram at @TheWilliamCaps.
You can find me at MetaWorldDerek.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the House by Vastore podcast. Thanks for listening.